Hello, and welcome to Future Commerce, the podcast about the next generation of commerce. I'm Brian.
I'm Philip, and today we are with Sofiia Shvets, the CEO and founder of Let's Enhance and now Claid AI, who's coming to the show to tell us a little bit about the advancements in generative AI tech for e-commerce. Welcome to the show, Sophie. How's it going?
Thank you guys for having me here. It's been great. November is always like super busy months for all the e-commerce and e-commerce providers as well. So very excited to be here.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to have you. I'm coming to you guys live from my sister's house. You can, if you're watching the video version of the podcast, you can see I'm in a middle schooler's room. This is that time of year. I'm assuming that your business is quite busy and that you service the e-commerce industry. But tell us a little bit about your journey and what your company does.
So my company is called Let's Enhance.io. So we have two products, Let's Enhance that we started, and that actually we were not very creative. We just copied the name of the product and named the company the same, and also Claid AI. So we built AI-based tools for e-commerce. We started with 4 years ago with technology that can improve quality of content when we were just taking small, crappy-looking photos, try to clean them up, and redraw them in higher quality. And eventually, we started to investigate more and started getting more and more requests. And last year, we launched Claid AI, which is end-to-end like API for e-commerce, when we can take not just improve the content, but we also can do basically the whole editing workflow when we remove backgrounds, fix light, can take one picture and create like 10 assets for that for different menus. So it's designed to replace very, very boring, routine-ish work that lots of content teams do, and do it at scale. So if you have like many pictures of different products, our product is designed to save you time and money.
Wow, it's so cool. I feel like this is a time saver and a money saver for sure. It also almost feels like an opportunity for like reformation of team and like de-siloing of different parts of a business, because some of the stuff that I've seen with your tool feels like it would take multiple departments to sort of get to the outcome that you end up with once you apply Claid to an image or to a campaign. And so I feel like yes, yes, money saver, yes, time saver, also accelerator of business. Launching new channels, launching new campaigns can become a lot so efficient that you could actually rethink how you are structured and what a campaign even means. Do you see the potential here as well, or am I just like extrapolating a little too far here?
No, actually, you are very on spot. So our primarily clients are multi-sellers platforms that get content, get different products for multiple brands and multiple providers. So what happens is that we call it internally unstructured data, that some providers send it in Google Docs, some providers send it in zip archives, some providers send it. It's very different formats. Everything is like very not consistent. So there is the whole teams that review them manually and try to structure for these specific requirements, because lots of platforms, they know that for their catalog, I don't know, product needs to take 80% of the canvas, need to be 1600 pixel wide, and for this menu, but for this preview, it needs to be square, because we take this and automatically scrub these photos and use them for Google Shopping campaigns. So there's a lot of very concrete requirements, which lots of departments spend days. Actually, we did some test with one of our clients, with one of the biggest food delivery companies. They get lots of food photos, on average, food appears from 72 hours to 1 week later while going through all the review processes, goes through the multiple team, the content team, some editing team, and then it appears online through all the verifications. So the part of that we do, we just not just save money and time, we also help companies to speed up and optimize the processes, and also be able to operate, more content, more these types of brands like that. The same team can now be like twice efficient because this is like delegated.
So
There's
cool.
a challenge that a lot of businesses have when trying to scale, is that you find yourself today, if you're launching, from zero, a brand new brand, there's so many channels to have to publish in. There's so many channels that you have to operate in order to win. Like, the prevailing knowledge today is that direct to consumer is not viable on its own, that you should have a marketplace strategy. You should also have a wholesale and distribution strategy for brick and mortar. The bar has never been higher for brands to be able to be successful in the marketplace. And the challenge is that every single one of these marketplaces, every single one of these channels have their own rules, not just to understand, but to be able to compete and win in those channels. And so having more tooling that allows a still very small team to be able to operate efficiently, with competitive margins, I think is the biggest challenge that we face in e-commerce today. And so having more autonomy in an organization, and being able to generate the kind of imagery that you need without having to go through, heaps and heaps of compliance, or writing briefs, and getting time on a team, and getting things scheduled, and having to go to the creative department, and having to get things cleared by brand. These are all impediments to growth in e-commerce right now. So it's something we talk about all the time, but I feel like just digesting it for our audience to kind of hear what the opportunity is. And this is, by the way, this is like totally unsponsored episode. We're good friends. And I just think that there's a really interesting challenge here, that there isn't enough tooling in the marketplace today to solve these problems. You have to have 20 tools to do it, and very creative people to power it. Brian, you were going to jump in here.
No, I was laughing because I was like, yes, that 20 tools and several departments, and it feels like this sort of cuts through a lot of that very quickly. You start to rethink. I was just like, my mind's turning on this. You start to rethink what a campaign even means, and why would you run things through certain channels if you have the ability to push them out as fast as you would with a tool like this. I It almost feels like, what Shein did for clothing, like Claid could enable from a content generation perspective in some way, like the opportunity
Let's
to, yeah,
Sorry,
go ahead.
I have a little bit of a delay. Sorry. Why don't we start from the beginning, and let's talk about how you're finding product market fit, in that even just in the last year since we've met and started talking, Sophie, it sounds like the idea of application of AI to assist already existing assets to AI becoming generative has been a massive shift of understanding of the marketplace. So maybe take us on that journey as you're finding product market fit with Claid AI.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like as I mentioned, we started with a very, very general case to take photos and make them higher quality, and that was the first because like we were mostly interested in technology, and that's how lots of AI companies start. They something new, some technology appears, and then they try to explore the potential applications. So we started very wide, and then when we were exploring this, we understood that the big value of technology and applications of AI is actually narrowing it down to specific cases. So that's when we took our existing idea of squeezing the max of the content that it will serve for specific requirements and needs, and focused on the industries of marketplaces of e-commerce. So it started adding a lot of additional tools and additional steps of workflows that teams are already doing, but now they can be replicated with all these automatic operations. You just add them one by one, and 2 seconds later you have what you need to do. Generative AI is like phase 2 of the whole AI development process, which phase 1 was you have a lot of content, like input content, and now you do post-production, right? You edit it and you try to, update it for your requirements. With generative AI, it's like phase 2, when you can take the content and now you can create absolutely new content, because this creation stage was still on photographers, was still on production studios, was still on like you need to hire somebody to do the content for you, or even like the creation can be like your users take photos of their phones, in front of the white wall. It's also the creation stage, but you still need to do it. So when the generative AI appeared, I would say like it started with text. It always starts with more like text networks, and this year was very big brand like with Doll E starting to explore with art creation, and now with Stable Diffusion, which is a new network that appeared like in August. And in the 1.5 months, 200,000 developers subscribed to start building on that. So I think we're just in the beginning of this wave, but we are in the beginning of very big shift that we cannot just like edit content. We can now create it from scratch for multiple industries, and brands and e-commerce are definitely one of them.
Can you give us like a use case with a particular brand? Because I think the thing that often is missed in these conversations is like the practical application. So we're not just talking about, paint us a picture in the style of Salvador Dali, right? Like this is something that's actually practical and useful for merchandising. So maybe walk us through how this might be used.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what we're exploring right now for e-commerce and brand case. But one of the examples that's been used is, for example, Heinz ketchup brand was built a campaign of generating posters using the AI and like the way how AI resync them. So it can be definitely used by brand campaigns, by some social campaigns, because the way that these networks works, and they might take this very traditional images that we got used to, and rephrase them and redraw them in completely new way. So it's very, very creative. It can give like a lot of ideation and new ideas on like how to look to the existing products. So definitely one of the use case that I see that we can use is creating brand campaigns and creating ads. On the more practical cases that we can do is creating e-commerce images from scratch when we have let's say 10-15 photos of the product. And what we are particularly exploring right now is that when we have the same product, it's very hard to create new content all the time. And as a brand, you need new content all the time for newsletters. There's Black Friday in 2 days. Like there's one campaign, there's Christmas, there is, I don't know, like summer season, winter season. So you need to to reinvent and create new content all the time, because the content memory of the internet is very, very short. And even for the ad campaigns, banner blindness is a huge problem, and everybody's tried to overcome it in some ways. So one of the use cases that we are particularly exploring is that we can take this product, we can feed our system with the, like, let's say 10-15 images of that product to give a lot of like unique details. And then we can create absolutely new images from scratch. We can build stories around our product. We can, if we have, I sent a few examples to Philip. He will add to the campaign that you can create, like, take gummies brand kids candies, and then you can place it in absolutely different backgrounds. You can change colors. You can change transformations of the product. So it allows you to be very, very creative and create a lot of new, unique content using these networks. Definitely, it's still early. So one of the big challenges is to keep the accuracy of the product, that AI does not change, form of the product and keep it very, all the unique details as they should be. But this is something that it's possible to do, and this is something that I see as a big opportunity to like constant creation of the content.
Content is king, and like you said, the internet has a very short memory. It needs
True.
to be refreshed a lot. I think the tool set has to evolve to meet the market where the market's at. Feels like this is that next iteration. I think you touched on some things that I feel like we could even dive further on, and that is like things have made some real strides. AI has made some real strides in the past year, and in consumer, I feel like especially like finally people are starting to catch the vision for like what is possible to at work. That often happens with new tech. People start to see things in the consumer sense, and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, I can actually use this in my business. This is really, really cool. And so like the Dolly Mini, Dolly 2, and now you have this tool. You mentioned something about inspiration, and I definitely see very strong opportunity to use a generative tool to provide like creativity and ideas for new campaigns. And you mentioned like holiday and like and weather and seasonal. There's a lot of other things you can build campaigns around. Do you see your tool as it exists today as more of like a campaign creation like facilitator, or do you see it actually creating the like end product assets that are used as a part of that campaign? Is it end to end, or is it just like certain components?
That's a very good question, and it depends how you wrap it. It can serve both goals. In our cases, we are exploring that in the end, you will have something production ready. But the key thing that of all the generative AI is that it's not fully end to end. On this stage, it's a copilot. So, and that's a big thing that, like, even in text generation or any generation, if you create something new, but we still need some human input. Like, how do you want to see the product? How do you want to see, like, what's the story behind that? Because, like, if the AI can create the visuals, there still needs a story, like, of your brand. What do you want to see? Like, do you want to build a story that's, some characters traveling around the world, or you want to create absolutely new, your brand is, I don't know, what if we take our sneakers and how would somebody like aliens will wear them on Mars or something like this? Absolutely different context, but still the human idea is key to that, because we can create a lot of presets, but like it doesn't replace creativity. So in our case, we definitely want something that can be used. And we start with something simple, that we take the product, we place it on multiple backgrounds, and that can be used for, let's say, ad campaigns. Like, you need 10 different banners of your product in different like backgrounds. I don't know, if you have cosmetic brand, maybe it makes sense to put it on the bathroom shelf or somewhere like that is makes sense for your customer, or even something crazy like, on the Mars surface or something like this. But it also can be used in ideation stage. And we actually just been testing with one brand is that we train the system on their product, and now we can create absolutely different forms of that product. So you can change colors, you can I don't know, make this product reflective. You can change, you can make it animalistic, and that can be a cool idea that even given to your customers. You can wrap this AI into this one command line and give it to your customers, and ask them, like, what if, create the most crazy version of our product, and now go, lots of ideas. Or that's what you can do in the room with your marketing team or your brand team as well.
I have a couple of like sort of practical questions on like how much training data is needed to make a convincing enough, model within the AI to place your product into it. So I think I'd given you a couple weeks ago, we had a conversation and I said, if I'm Mondelez and I want to use Claid for, putting the Oreo cookie into a scene, I want to show an Oreo going into some milk. What is required to sort of get that model in? Is that a very laborious process? Is that a specialized set of skills? Who can perform that today, and where is it heading?
So in our case, we have an AI team that currently does all the testing and training, but in the future we definitely will wrap it into some simple interface that users can do by themselves. The key thing about like the data is depends on the complexity of the product. Like if your product has a lot of tiny details, maybe 15, 20 would be better. If you use something simple like Oreo cookie, I think we used seven or eight photos. You need to give enough context to AI to understand what your product is about. Like if you want to generate completely new product photos. If you want just to replace backgrounds, we already can do it pretty consistently with just one photo. Like if you have one picture of your product, we use our existing techniques, like we can remove the background, we can mask that product, and then we can inpaint and position it in different environments. So in that case, like one picture might be just enough. So
It's funny because I thought my immediate objection to this was,
yeah,
I have a pretty keen sense of when I can tell that something was generated by AI. Um,
yeah,
I think things have a little bit of a unsettling nature. You shared something on Twitter that went viral of a number of hands like all shaking each other. It looked very,
yeah,
very unsettling, right? Um, but then I remember that I had the same objection 10 years ago to 3D modeled product photography. And it
yeah.
seems to be now that, 99% of the things that you buy on the internet, you're not looking at a real package. You're not looking at a real product. You're not looking at real food. It's not photographed. It's 3D modeled. There's not a piece of furniture that you bought in the last 5 years online that was a real product, that was a picture that was taken of it. It's all facsimile all the way down, right? It's just good. The tool gets better and better and more convincing to where it's just good enough that we are able to kind of see it for what it is. It's not a 3D model. Now it looks like the product that you want to buy. How far are we away from that in the consumer product space with Claid? And how fast do you think you're iterating to get there? Or is it pretty convincing already?
I think we need maybe a months and a half. Like it's moving very fast. So
That's not the answer I thought.
no, but like we can already see consumization of AI in multiple cases. There were a lot of popular products that appeared for the last months that can generate AI avatars with your face. So you upload 20 photos of your selfies, and now you can be, I don't know, medieval prince or like an alien or whatever you want to be. But for e-commerce, for the first version, definitely there is already like a lot of development. For the one that you mentioned, that definitely you can tell that there's some difference, and that's the whole industry is working on improving that. So like you can tell there is some artifacts. AI can be, there's some funny missed thing that AI just doesn't like fingers. Like I had cases with 6 fingers, with 7 fingers, eyes. It all can be resolved with narrowization of the use case. So if you need to create photos that somebody holds your product with a decent amount of data and training and improving, this will definitely result in the matter of months. It's just everybody, like I shared this meme because everybody in AI knows that fingers is like the toughest cookie to crack. There's fingers and scissors. we have the funny
Really?
Caesar test internally, because like I've seen so many forms of scissors on the like very forms that are not round or that has a lot of like components like fingers. Yeah, AI can add more, but it will be fixed in the next, I would say, few months for sure. Just it's just a funny case that.
How does that get fixed? Pardon the ignorance. I don't know much about this, but how does that get fixed over time? Is that just more training data, or we get better
Yeah,
at recognizing where the limitations are so we avoid them? Is it that we're able to take the areas that show flaws in the generation and we replace them with real photography and sort of merge the real and the sort of generative together? Like, what's the solve there?
there is a few methods. As I'm not a researcher, definitely more training data. You literally need to show AI more pictures of fingers. There's also a bunch of methods that are based on physics of the product, like one of the same that 3D models are created like to keep the proportions, not to create people with like gigantic heads or gigantic hands. So like there's methods to teach AI to understand proportions and like draw them naturally. Yeah, and all over is the more data you show, the more consistent it is. There is also some. I know that we internally we use some additional AI network that can estimate the quality of the output and like teach the AI teaches the AI that hey, this is good or this is not good. So
Oh, that doesn't
there's
sound
more.
like a slippery slope at all. That sounds
Yeah.
yeah. I need an
Yeah.
AI just to tell me what to spend money on, and then you can cut me out of the mix here. You guys, you just tell me what I need, send me stuff when I need it. You don't even need to make
This
photography
is
anymore.
exactly what's going to happen next is people are going to train their personal AIs to review AI generated content that will purchase or not purchase AI generated products that are print on demands that will be printed by
Yeah.
robots and mailed
You know,
back through
we
automated systems.
you're making a joke, but I think you're making a really interesting point here, which is if you need diminishing numbers of photos to have something fairly convincing that can be like sort of generated on demand, it really takes testing and user testing and split testing to a whole separate level,
Right.
where it's much more algorithmic and much more determinate based on the person's behavior and who they are and how you learn about them over time. And maybe
Yeah.
there is a future where we have a profile like a Brian profile or a Philip profile, and maybe this is where wallets and sort of the democratization of personalized data that allows me to give you information about myself in a much more fair and sort of control centric way, in that I have control over my private data. Like, this is a
Mhm.
thing that I can see myself being able to put myself into product photography and see myself try things on in a given ecosystem in apparel, or see myself on a vacation somewhere. These are ways to kind of be able to be much more immersive in the future in an on-demand capacity, as opposed to the way we're thinking about it now, which is what is our current use case. But that's not how
Right.
technology ever works, right? There will be a future use case that we can't even be able to dream of that is more likely the outcome than not. Sorry, the
Yeah, I think
musing there. Yeah.
no, people love they love outcomes. They also love having good choices, like good choices. And there's a lot of like data that people have to sort through to get to choosing something that they actually like like choosing between all good options. And so I feel like and back to your point, Philip, like the amount of content that we're going to be able to generate as a result of having systems like this is going to require like really smart multivariate testing systems to make sure the right content is displayed at the right time. It changes the way we think about how how consumers are going to interact with content in the future.
And you know what
And
we've always
so
said is that we don't have enough content. We need more content. That's what we that's what we need.
There is a study that I read recently that currently around 1% of the content on the internet is AI generated. In the next 10 years, the prediction is up to 50%.
Wow.
And we are talking about all the content that we consume, like news. So like even if you take like magazines, text can be generated, covers can be generated. Like you can put yourself in there, like as Philip described, I want to see myself in this. And this hyper personalization is something that everybody wants, and that's where everybody, like the whole industry, moves towards that direction. We're already on the path. If you think about ads, which people hate, but still, if it's a good ad, like sometimes you can find something that is, it's interesting for you. So definitely one of the closest cases is we generate ads. Another AI that sits instead of like inside of this ad system measures your like how people react on that, how you personally react. Like, okay, I generated this photo on the beach, but Brian didn't respond, so let's try another one. It's like, oh, I see that Brian likes this style, like minimalistic, I don't know, dark style. Let's show him more content like this. So with enough tweaks will be almost real time. So, and I'm sure that it will be like next few years.
It's so weird. I don't know why. All of the ads on the whole of my internet is just fingers and scissors. It's inexplicable, and none of them look quite right. That's that's the future. That is, that's like a nightmare. I how are there's a lot of conversation right now about sort of copyright concern. I know that's come up quite a bit. Getty, sort of a very large royalty and licensed image repository that kind of is instrumental in a lot of content production, especially like high-end content production in the world. They've sort of created a ruling saying that nothing that's generative can be added to their library at this point. What are some of the thoughts around that, and could that be a barrier to adoption for the largest organizations looking to potentially, who could benefit the most from AI?
I think multiple, like all the industries, like even if there's a lot of claims that AI will kill designers or photographers. No, as I mentioned, I believe that it can replace a lot of like boring, dumb work, help us to be more creative, to create more content. It's basically right now you can create a lot of content by yourself, like without being an artist. But definitely there is a lot of questions about the like what content should be used. There was a famous case with the artist called Greg Rutkowski. I'm not sure if I pronounced the surname right, but he's doing this very futuristic style photos, like illustrations of post-apocalyptic world, and for the last 25 years. So this is his bread and butter. And it appeared that he was very popular, and now everybody can create photos in his style because like Midjourney and Dolly was trained, and like basically was trained on the half of the internet, but some part of the internet was his works, and now like everybody can create photos of his work. So he was very, very unhappy about that, about like that he wasn't asked any permissions, and now like people can copy paste his content. So definitely there is a lot of hard conversation around that. There is an ongoing lawsuit about some AI rights, if you can use content, if you can just use the content without permission. I think in the future there will be some regulation for sure that guys and artists like Greg can opt out. It's like, I don't want my data to be used in this training set. But Getty, they blocked the AI generated content, but then they announced that they still like their competitor Shutterstock announced that, yeah, we don't allow generated content, but here now we will partner with OpenAI, so you can create content still on our platform, but we will use this money and donate to like creator fund, and we'll still reward artists, because that's like fighting inevitable. Getty blocked. At the same time, there is like 10 big stock photos which just purely AI generated. Like Lexica art is one of the examples. That it's like fighting something that will happen. It's better to control it and and just adapt it to your model.
That's so interesting. So that again, having not enough exposure to this world, there is, rather than just saying like, oh, it's going to disrupt Getty as a potential marketplace, it's actually creating marketplaces that never existed before, wherein that people may want specifically to go to a source just for generative stock photography. That to me is the surest sign of a technology that is like almost at breaking the gravitational pull, right? Like
Right.
it's we're at escape velocity at this point, because new desires and new demands in the marketplace are emerging that you couldn't have anticipated before.
And that's going to break how we do this too, like, or like how like back to the original point, like how we go create campaigns. It's going to make us rethink what a campaign even is and why we would do one. Because the ability to create fresh ideas is literally at your fingertips all the time. It makes
Yeah.
me think that there's going to be a number of brands that pop up that are going to be just focused on like using tools like this, and that and there'll be the sacrificial lambs that get bought out, or like the big company comes along and just copies them, and like they end up like not making a ton of money on it. But there's going to be some like really foundational brands that are going to come out, use some of these technologies to really like 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 pioneer what it looks like to have a brand that leverages these kinds of technologies, and grow very, very, very quickly as a result.
Yeah.
But not saying that they're going to be successful, because I think there needs to be a couple sacrificial lambs first before we see it truly adopted like across the major brands.
Let's actually, Sophie, I want your perspective on this. What if there's the higher order thinking, where it's beyond just the content that goes into a website that becomes shoppable in the current shopping paradigm that we use online? But what if it's actually the website itself? Like the actual interface that we use to purchase itself could be generative to some degree too. What would it take to get there? This is, thinking to myself, like, what are ways that we can design? We have a perspective that came out in the Visions report around, creating new modes of content delivery that are purposely a little bit offbeat, maybe, sort of anti-designed, specifically meant to evoke some sort of like emotion or response. It's not optimized for shopping. It's optimized to actually feel something. Where could we be in sort of the assistive nature of an AI helping us design better user experiences end to end, rather than just the content that goes inside of it?
Yeah, that's actually a great question. And like AI can disrupt actually both ways. From currently, we use a lot of like these constructor tools that help us create the websites with like some general UX rules. But I remember your position that now all website looks the same. So what AI can do is definitely it's create this emotional target that you can experience. You can create some experiences with the product that like you want to showcase. Add a person there, add change it, make the user imagine how this I don't know, I'm just like you upload a photo of your room and then you can see like, okay, somebody like this vase or whatever product is in my room, how it will look like. It's something that ER tried to do, but now like the barrier to entry is much lower. So because we have this you have this input and now we can experience the product. And in the future, definitely creating stories on the go. There was one case that was very interesting from when text networks appeared, that some users on Reddit, they replicated the game that it's like endless game, and you were writing what character does. It's something like firsthand, and it's like character goes there, and then it created a text block. But with generative AI,
the old MUDs of the bulletin board days, the multi-user domains.
Yeah.
I am very familiar because I'm an old guy. Yes.
And now you can show them, and you can control firsthand what can happen. So lots of opportunities for like storytelling, for immersing this again hyper personalization that is embedded in the website. Like experience it and then buy, shop, like small buy button after in the end.
Experiential purchasing.
Experiential.
There you go. Yeah, I feel like there's lots of opportunity. Like Philip, I think you were kind of going towards like, well, if they have the opportunity to like regenerate front ends, like in experiences, we can get even more personal with them. Right now, personalization just means surfacing products to people based on their past browsing history.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
like, what if personalization actually meant, creating experiences that were like really interesting? I love anagrams, and like thinking through like how different like words could become other words. And I feel like this is almost like, like you could use this to create anagrams out of websites. Like there's so many different ways you can configure what's there, and you can create different experiences out of the assets that exist. And if you have enough assets, you can create some really cool things. That's really, really cool. I'm so excited about the future of AI as it relates to shopping and content. It feels like the possibilities are almost boundless. That's
Yeah.
sort of what I'm taking away right now.
What's next on the horizon for you, Sophie? What is what are ways that people can actually put this to work today, and can they get in touch with you to do it?
Yeah, so I think we will share some contact details, right? And also, like, we are currently in closed launch, so we do run tests with some beta partners to showcase what can be done, and at the same time helps us to learn what exactly the goals, like what we need to solve with this technology, because as we discussed, it can be wrapped in many multiple cases. So if people want to test, they can also fill the type form on our Claid AI /Generation AI. It's free. We do free tests for now, so it's if you are interested. So it for us, you can fill the form, and we will be in touch.
Very good. We'll appreciate it. Sofiia Shvets, the founder CEO of the next generation of commerce, literally. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And thank you all for listening to Future Commerce. The best way to predict the future is to build it. Maybe we'll be doing that with AI pretty soon. And from end to end, it sounds like, if at least if Brian Lang has his way. Thank you all for listening.